Most men want more clarity, more respect, more control over their lives, but few know how to get it. Welcome to the Bro Coach Podcast with Dennis Procopio, the founder of Man Up Life Coaching and the man behind thousands of transformed lives. Not red pill, not therapy, just the evolved man's blueprint for strength, presence, and purpose.
Hey everybody, I am Dennis Procopio and you are on the Bro Coach Podcast. This is season 2 and I'm excited about the guest I have today. I am here with a client, a friend, and an exemplary man. My guy, Jonathan Hartsfield. In a few strokes, this is a guy who came into coaching because he recognized that iron sharpens iron. He wanted a blueprint for how to take it to the next level. This is a guy who is making moves in his life, and I think an hour spent with this man chatting about all things male will be a very good listen. So without any further ado, let me welcome my guest, Jonathan Hartsfield. Jonathan, thanks for being here.
Dennis, hey, thanks for having me.
All right, man. Jonathan, I'm going to do a little Q&A with you right off the top.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
So, as you know, my wife is a lawyer and, in fact, was barred in a whole bunch of different states. She was barred in New York and she worked in big law. She was barred in Louisiana, which is, basically Napoleonic Code. That's its own thing. She's barred in North Carolina and worked in the Mecklenburg County, and she's barred now here in California. When you came on as a client, I was very interested in you because I kind of like lawyers. Lawyers are cool people, man, and you have not let me down. What made you decide, hey, I want to move in the direction of being a lawyer? How did that happen?
Well, thank you. I appreciate the lawyers are cool people plug. There's a lot of lawyer jokes out there. So thanks for sparing us. Well, I wanted to go into law from, I think, undergrad. I did this activity called mock trial with the American Mock Trial Association, where you get this fictitious mock legal problem. 1 year it's criminal, 1 year it's civil. And my undergrad, Northwood University, we did fairly well in the activity. And I think that really inspired me to go to law school. And then I have several attorneys in my family who I admire, really respect. And I think that combination of seeing them, being around them, being influenced by them, and my experience with mock trial really propelled me to go to law school.
That's awesome. So, what kind of law were the people who you were inspired by doing? Did you even know at the time as a kid, or did you just know they're lawyers and that's cool?
Yes, I think I knew from my early age as far as what they did and specifically the type of law, not as much. But coming into middle school, high school, I came to understand I have an aunt in New York. She did criminal defense for a long time, family law work. I have an
Okay.
aunt in Houston who did immigration law for a very long time, amongst some other areas of law. But immigration, I think, was one of her specialties. And then I have an aunt in Michigan who's a judge, um, and presided over probate estate um, cases for a very long time, and then has recently shifted over to juvenile, hearing juvenile matters. I have a cousin who she has her own firm. I think does some probate stuff amongst some other general practitioner activity. I have another cousin in Houston, Texas, whose mom did the immigration work. He came to be a barred attorney in Texas, and did some cool stuff for some time. My wife, she's an attorney, works in the insurance space, and then there's me. So I and then of course several other family and friends as well. But
So
uh,
so 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 growing up for you, what I find interesting about this is that growing up for you, it's almost like a dynasty. When you see people in your family doing something, it becomes attainable to you as an idea, which is why modeling and community leadership becomes so important. You grew up in a family where people worked in and around law. So you, from a young age, said, that's attainable. That's interesting. That's something that I can do. And I would imagine that just like
yeah,
being
absolutely.
in a family of lawyers or in a family of politicians or anything else, there's this um, kind of idea that if you're able to get up into that echelon, there's a kind of a self-respect thing going on there as well, right? Like you're carrying on a tradition of family excellence.
Yeah, I think that probably is a factor. I think to your point, you can replicate what you see and are exposed to,
Uh-huh.
and so there's and perhaps a contagiousness or a transfer of energy that is experienced, or that I think I experience, and I think the combination of one seeing these folks and then admiring these individuals, with real deep admiration, for these folks, it really um, one created that desire to want
Yes.
to attain, and then also a sense of confidence and the ability to attain. So I think one, the desire to attain is created from seeing and experiencing these folks, and then the confidence that I can do it, and probably may run parallel with the desire, but I think that's a separate thing in and of itself. Being confident to, finish undergrad and then finish law school. I think that, yeah. So yeah,
Absolutely.
conversation agreement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you said two things there. You said one that the um seeing it makes it attainable and creates that desire. There's a contagion there where there's influence, frankly, like in my childhood, I saw the successful people around me and I saw what I didn't want because I grew up, little on the rough side. So for me, there was this kind of hero's journey narrative going on, whereas I wasn't going to be a statistic. I didn't want to be this impoverished person. I wanted to be somebody who's successful in some way. And interestingly for me, I wasn't surrounded by family who were lawyers. I had this rough ride, as a lot of my listeners know, um, that found me in court for different reasons. I was in court for custody battles. I was in court for misdemeanors and felonies when I was out there making mistakes in my life. And so some of my first experiences with lawyers were, this is this person who has the power to decide if I live with my mom or my dad or I'm ward of the state. This is somebody who has the power to decide if I go into the back room or if I walk out through the front door, And so I started to have a reverence for the power that lawyers have. And as somebody who was always very vocal and, a somebody who could always make a good argument as part of being a survivor, I was always interested in law. And to this day, I ended up with a lawyer. That's the mother of my child. And, I'm in a 17-year-long relationship with a woman who I admire for her brains. And I also think it's kind of like a feather in my cap. I married a lawyer. That thing is still there, even though I make more money than her, and I'm helping her pay her bills. I'm still like, I got me a lawyer. So there has to be something for you that feels good about coming from, Detroit, where there were pitfalls for a young man. You could have gotten you could have fallen off the path.
Sure,
I'm sure
sure.
those temptations were there.
Yeah, 1,000 different potholes along the way.
Yeah, right.
Major craters. Yeah.
So speak to that for me a little bit. What was your, if you don't mind, this is about you. I'll reiterate. I threw my dude under the bus here. He comes in for a session and I'm like, "Hey dude, want to do a podcast?" He's like, "Wait, what?" So this is off the rip, but I know this guy. This is one of the brightest humans I've ever met and I love this person's personality. I think he's a wonderful husband, a wonderful father, a wonderful man, and I think we need more role models like Mr. Hartsfield here. And so he's like, "All right, D, I'm gonna trust you and come in here and do this shit, but don't make me look bad because I'm coming up in this world." So I'm focusing on you. It's about you, and so I'm making it a sort of a mini biopic. So what was coming up for you? You started in Detroit. What's that look like?
Yeah. First off, you're too kind. Thanks for your kind words. Yeah, coming up in Detroit, my parents were real blue collar folks. My dad, you know, works for one of the big three in the auto industry. Has been
Mm-hmm.
a union guy, all my life, and
Mm-hmm.
my granddad, a union guy, worked for one of the big three
Mm-hmm.
all of my life. So uncles, firefighters, policemen. Um, my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. Came up, through the Detroit public school system, and I was blessed with parents who kept me active and involved and exposed to various extracurricular activities. So I started playing chess at an early age, around 5 or 6. My dad taught me to play chess, taught me how to golf, took me to uh, golf range and the golf course, and I was part of the golf team in high school, and yeah, ended up joining a swim team on an early age. My mom and dad would take me to the YMCA to swim. So I had a brother and a sister who were very close in age. Older brother is a year older than me. Younger sister is a year younger than me. So we all grew up very close. Rich childhood in terms of diversity of experience and being around a lot of family. A neighborhood, blue collar neighborhood. So some of the elements that you would find in a city like Detroit was many years, and it still has some struggles in terms of urban blight and segregation between the urban center and the suburban um, element that sort of fled the city in 50s, 60s, 70s, and so that flight of tax base, they really came to a head when Detroit ultimately filed for bankruptcy. They one of the
Uh,
first maybe cities to ever file for bankruptcy. So you had an element in Detroit where there's the real economic issue among
we all know about Detroit, bro. You
you
using
know,
all that all using out all that legal language and shit.
but,
But Detroit's was kind of busted for a minute there, and getting out of Detroit is a
some
thing,
busted
right?
issues. Man, so growing up, you got that element, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
uh, you really decide, whether you're going left or you're going right, and it's easy to be pulled in, quote unquote, the wrong direction. And I got many friends, I grew up, in the street,
right. Streets always watching, and they
you
they
know,
can
you
pull
know,
you in. It's a thing. I know.
yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it just the staying busy in activities. I think my parents were very smart and keeping us occupied in
Right.
activities, and so
Right.
that prevented the downtime from,
Right.
folks who was, you're
Getting
just
caught up. Right.
in the
Getting caught up.
neighborhood,
Yeah.
from the
Right.
morning to the evening, and then, you're not going too much further than the 3 or 4 blocks in our immediate neighborhood. You probably not have much going on, but I think, yeah, getting involved makes a difference.
So that's what's up. So let me synthesize, because you drop these bombs, and I gotta downplay it for some of the simpler folks listening to my thing here. So your parents, as I know, just celebrated their well, when you and I met, they were just celebrating their 40th anniversary. So
Going
is
on
that
40
correct?
years.
Huh?
40 years and 2 months.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Going on 40 years and 2 months. Okay. Um and church people.
Church guy. My
Oh, your
mom, my
dad's
mom, my mom was a church guy. So we grew up in the church for sure. And
okay,
that,
but it
and my
was your it was
granddad.
your m- it was your mom who was leading the charge to bring the kids to church. It wasn't your dad.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Hard as he worked, he probably wanted to stay home on Sunday, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was right.
Yeah, I think that's right too. Um, okay, so I'm painting a picture of a young man who grew up with people in his family who demonstrated affluence is available through education. The an idle mind is a devil's workshop, and idle hands are devil's playthings. So when the streets are calling and they're going ayo, and you're like, can't, I got to go to karate class or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
Right, yeah. um that's one, that's good parenting, and then two, good on you for being an exemplary student of life who looked at some of the options that um some of those urban offerings, if we're going to use your language, and to say, yeah, that's although I know that you and I both have in common, and we won't go too far down this path because that's not like, I'm not trying to get into our, our hip hop pasts here, but you and I both have in our common that we were spitters back in the day, and that can be a gateway, because once you're out there, spitting bars and everyone's like, oh, damn. Then the next thing being able to spit leads to being in clubs, and like, it's a world. So you manage to transcend some of the trappings that might be uh, attractive to a naive young man. And now you are a guy who, are you able to share what you do for a living now and where you work? I mean, I want to,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah. And just a, you know, level set. I'm far less of a spitter than you. I'm probably more, yeah. I hosted a few battle raps that made their way to world star, hip hop.
right,
That's probably
yeah,
more of my, but yeah. Right now, I practice law in the housing law space in Mecklenburg County.
Mhm.
Work for a nonprofit firm, helping folks avoid eviction, helping
So
with.
Charlotte, by the way, I don't mean to cut you off, but for anybody who doesn't know where Mecklenburg County is, if you're listening from outside of the United States, which is very possible, Mecklenburg County is in Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Yeah.
Yeah, Queen City, and so
Queen City.
uh,
Okay.
here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, and yeah, various consumer protection issues that um, raise and operate in.
Consumer protection issues. What would, if somebody was like, what the hell is he talking about? Like, what's
So,
the non-lawyery way to say that?
yeah, so within the housing space, if you get charged fees that a landlord may not be entitled to, that can be an issue we raise. If you are getting charged rent that isn't a fair market rent given the conditions of the property as something we would raise as a consumer protection
So
issue if you
basically,
have.
extortion. I mean, that's what bad landlords do. They extort. They recognize people need a place to live. They set up a trap, and then they kind of extort you. Isn't that what they do?
Certainly a power imbalance between your common person trying to
There's
corporate
definitely a
landlord.
power imbalance. Yeah, I see you. So you're a Robin Hood. You defend the little guy
Yeah, passionately, proudly, happy to do it.
passionately and proudly. Now, here's an interesting topic. Anybody listening to this is going to go, this man just said he grew up in Detroit and yet deferred to Dennis of Man Up Life Coaching as the spitter of the two of them. Not many of my listeners know that I was in Power Play Studios in Queens with Eric B. and Rakim back in the day. G-Rap, Prince
I don't have a
Paul.
resume like that.
Nah, no, not many people know that. So if you happen to be listening and you catch that tidbit, yeah, Coach Dennis has lived a few lives. Anyway, moving on. Another interesting fact is I was the first, I guess I'll say European American, in layman's terms, white guy, to ever take my school's African American history class. I lived in a black neighborhood. Which was I was on Broome Street in North Babylon, Long Island, right at the edge of Wyandanch. That's how I met Rakim, because we moved in similar spaces. And I was the only white kid on my bus. Everybody knew me. I was down. And at some point, the person who taught the Black history, African American history courses in my high school when I was in 10th grade, which would have been 87, said, "Hey, D, how would you like to make history? I want you to take our school's Black history course so that it opens up the idea that Black history is American history, not just a class for Black students to learn, quote, their history." And I said, down. And one of the things that has always stayed with me is what I learned about the difference between the philosophies of W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. Are you familiar? You've heard of these guys, I assume.
Yeah, a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, um, so the kind of debate between these two gentlemen is that Booker T, who, as you know, founded the Tuskegee Institute, was into the idea that Black Americans coming up in this country should focus on agriculture, like mechanical trades, domestic, service, and make money that way. And W.B. Du Bois, or Du Bois rather, sorry, I always try to um, uh, say the French way of saying his name, but I believe he pronounced it Du Bois, was a Harvard educated sociologist, and in fact the founder of the NAACP. And his philosophy was that liberal arts, science, humanities, higher education was critical for gaining um, a social foothold, so that you didn't just get pigeonholed as laborers. I find it interesting that dichotomy is still here in the U.S. today, where some people feel that the path to go is to do the blue collar route, and where you can in trade make a hell of a lot of money and be provident in that way, versus going into education, or leaning into education, taking the academic and professional route. Have you ever thought about your own identity in these terms and in the choices that you've made? Do you feel like you
Yeah, that's
represent a demographic there?
man, that's a heavy question, Dennis. So and thinking through, I think these ideas as far as the best way to lead a group of people coming out of 300 years of slavery
Call it what
and
it is.
trying
Yeah.
to attain full citizenship, trying to attain equality and justice as a people. If I'm a
Mhm.
leader in that time, Booker T, in the time of W.E.B, Du Bois, and I'm thinking, hey, what's the best way forward for these former slaves? How do we achieve and realize a life of our own, free of oppression and is the degradation? Do I focus on vocational skill? Do I focus on um, is professional uh, attainment, being an accountant, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being a engineer, etc. And I think a society needs a combination of
Both.
the vocationally trained journeymen, electricians, your carpenters, your your general contractors who can construct, your agricultural folks who can, till soil and grow food, and then you need folks who, understand how to repair a broken bone, understand how to, adjudicate disputes among individuals in a orderly, fair, consistent fashion. And so, it takes, two sides of the coin, to make the whole coin. Um, do I think of myself in a particular, how do I, self-identify? I, my objective is to strive to, maximize what I can maximize personally. And so, you know, um,
For the
I,
greater
I
good.
believe for the greater good. And what
Right.
that means is, hey, I got to continually, search myself. I got to continually examine myself, assess myself, and you know, in, in a way where I'm exploring, and then I'm just trial and error. I'm reading, I'm studying. I'm figuring out, what I like to read, what I like to study. You know, um, and I I think I understood in my teens. I love reading, and I like to engage in ideas, and I like to analyze, assess, see. So uh, that lends itself to the profession of law. You know, and so it's just
You're naturally geared toward academia because you're a bright guy. I mean, dude, I've played chess with you. When this dude tells you that he took his school to victory in state chess championships and stuff like that.
it's a cog in the wheel.
Hey man, stop spinning your wheels. If you're serious about leveling up your career, your relationships, and your mindset, it's time to man up. At Man Up Life Coaching, we cut the excuses and build discipline, confidence, and purpose. Book your free strategy session now at manuplifecoaching.com/application. Don't fill it out if you're not ready to grind, but if you are, this call could change your life. Man Up Life Coaching, elite life coaching for men by men.
I
Yeah.
mean, your humility is admirable, but I've played chess with you, dude. And I've just, the conversations that we've had, you're one of my favorite people to have intellectual conversations with, because you live in the same weird overlap of the Venn diagram that I do, which is like, bro, but also don't sleep on what's under the hood. And so you don't come across as some sort of self-aggrandizing, Jordan Peterson type, whose identity is, that you're an academic. You don't act better than. There's a tremendous amount of humility, but at the same time, you're incredibly driven, and you have this, drive. And I've always felt this about you. You recognize that what you're doing for yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself that you can be. You have this sort of David Goggins energy where you're always trying to push to be better, 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 just because you hold yourself to this impossible standard, which is great. But part of coaching is trying to get you to calm the fuck down sometimes with all that and enjoy life before you die. But you also recognize, hey, I represent an entire community, and I want to be at the bleeding edge of positive change. I want to legitimize my efforts, not only for myself, but for my family and for the community, for the greater good. And then finally, you're spiritually and religiously observant. So you're also following scripts that, I've known you well enough to know that you triangulate from, not just a single source. You're in the Bible, you're in the Quran, you're constantly working to be a humble, dedicated student of not only physics, but metaphysics, and all under the umbrella of the higher power, and to be a servant in that space. And the reason that I think you're exemplary is just because there's nobody telling you to do this. You are a self-driven guy on a mission. And if that's not someone that I want to host as a model for healthy masculinity in this day and age, then homie, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all your help, along the way, and helping me stay balanced and map things out, personally, professionally, helping me problem solve, help me identify, what actually is a problem, what isn't a problem, and so yeah. I mean, I appreciate your comments about being a model. I just I don't strive for that in space and being a model type, but I appreciate the yeah. To me, it's just you reference God. I think God is also an anchor in that. Mm. And this is something that I'm thinking through some of our conversations around. Hey, do you gotta try to be all you can be in order for God to be proud of you, or is it enough to just exist and be and be able to so forth?
Well, it's
I'm
funny.
rambling now.
No, you're not rambling, but you're saying something. So in one of my last sessions with my co-host, who isn't here today, Charles Ledbetter, who is also a Man Up Life coaching client, has moved on to coaching, and is also absolutely crushing in the property management space. Dude made himself a millionaire through during his time with Man Up Life coaching. And he came from that life, let's just say. He's from the dirty South, and he knows that world. So he never thought of himself either as a as a role model, as an example. He just thought of himself as somebody who was determined to come up and be the best that he can be. And the time that I've known you, you have been driven in the way that Charles similarly is driven toward excellence. And I think one of the things that he got from coaching that helped him out a lot is learning the balance. You've always heard me say that, somewhere between, how do I want to put this? Somewhere between linear drive and lateral drift, there's a perfect balance. I like to think of the pyramids, where a pyramid is a perfect shape because its height and its width allow for infinite structural expansion. If you go too high, you're going to fall over. If you go too wide, you've got a great base, but you're not really going up. You're not ascending. So in our coaching culture, we balance between drive and drift. And you are someone who is very driven. So you're like Jack and the Beanstalk. You're trying to go straight up. And one of the challenges of coaching a guy like you is to make sure that you remember to widen your base. And widening your base to a goal crusher like you feels like wasting time. So when we talk about things like meditation, when we talk about things like taking breaks, Charles said it best in our last podcast episode where he said, you are a human being, not a human doing. And we tend to focus so much on the doing piece that we forget that our function literally is being. And from a spiritual perspective, being is where you can expand your consciousness into the infinity that is the God mind. And that's where in that moment that you can understand that you are simultaneously a part of God by any name, by the way. If you're some agnostic or something and you're freaking out hearing the word God, these are just labels for me. I'm not legalistic, but for the sake of convenience, I'm going to employ the vernacular here. You can know that I am in God, but also am God in the way that anything that is built of parts, there's no part of that whole that is any more valuable than any other part of that whole. So it's this me-we relationship. One of the ways in which I think you're going to grow as a human being is going to be continuing to value when it's time to stop chopping down trees and when it's time to have lunch and sharpen your axe, right?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I no, we talked about the drive and drift element before, and I think that's the concept I'm still trying to absorb. And
That's right. That's right. And hey, listen, my reality is I'm not trying to sandbag anybody who's on a mission to excel. Like in the middle of a marathon, I'm not going to tell you, maybe you should just take a break. Like, I'm going to say no. Like, there'll be time to take a break later. You'll get your bananas and your water or whatever. Let's go, grind. So don't get it twisted. I am never saying take your foot off the gas. I am only saying don't let your RPMs go so high that your forward drive becomes counterproductive, right?
gotcha.
Yeah. Now, I want to shift to a different topic. This is going to sound a little personal, so I'm going to ease into it very carefully, but I think as long as you're careful to just say things that are authentic and kind and fair, we should be okay.
Let's do it.
You're married, yeah?
Correct.
How do you enjoy being married?
I love it. Yeah,
I love
changed my life.
Okay, I want people to hear that because I can't tell you how many of my guys come to me either from MGTOW or Kevin Samuels or whatever and have these really, yeah, right. You know where I'm going, right? Homie had some toxicity, but a lot of dudes were picking up what he was putting down because there's this freaking battle of the sexes that seems to continue to play out. And I'm not with that. And so it's so refreshing to have a successful man come into this podcast and say, I love my wife. I love being married, and I attribute a lot of my success to my queen, to my ride or die, to my lovely wife. So tell me more about that.
Yeah. It's just my wife is special. She's just a real beautiful spirit, beautiful energy. Gorgeous woman, and I feel fortunate that she came into my life. And I feel you know uh, blessed that I had the wisdom to say, hey, this is a keeper, and you know, I mean, she inspires me. She pushes me. It's not to be sure. I mean, being married, it's a real, it's work. You
It's not a
gotta,
cakewalk. Nobody's
no,
saying that. Right, right, right.
it's not for the faint of heart. You gotta really, it's something you gotta be committed to, and then you gotta have your character right, your integrity together, in order for you to have a harmonious engagement union with another individual. If you're gonna be locked in a foxhole with somebody, you gotta do right by them. They gotta do right by you, so that the harmony, the peace, can uh can sizzle.
That's real. That's
And
real.
if you're not right and she not right, it's just y'all can't be right. And so they just enter into marriage. And it's so easy in 2026, where, lame stuff is considered cool, and the
Mm,
the cool stuff, is considered
lame.
lame. And
Yeah.
what's the word? The folks simpy, like, you're simp if you get your white flowers on a regular basis, or you rub her back, you rub her down, you make sure that she's pampered and taken and cared for. It's like, hey, for me, I enjoy the opportunity to be able to service, my wife. In that, um, and vice versa. And so,
And vice versa. And
yeah,
that's the critical component. And vice versa. The
yeah,
difference between being a simp or not is that there's reciprocation there.
right. Yeah, she, loves me to death, and I love her to death, and we understand, and it's important to understand. uh, how do you want me to love you? Yeah, and I need to understand and study you to see, hey, that this is what it takes for you to feel the love. And then
Yeah.
you gotta study me to say, hey, this is what it's gonna take for me to feel the love. And that study, the energy required to engage in the study, I mean, it has to be grounded in the commitment, because that study,
That's discipline.
that's a it, that's this discipline. It's an energy consumer,
Right.
and so what drives you to to, to exert that energy? The drive to exert it got to be, hey, I'm committed to this. I'm committed to you. This love I got for you, hey, this shit burns like the Olympic torch, and you let me know what it's gonna take to keep that thing lit, and then just and then do those things. But yeah, being married, man, it's a life changing. I don't know, dating. I mean, shout out to the single cats. I mean, I'm like, I know it could be a good time, but it's a good night. It's a good week. I think for me, I covered the
Yeah.
opportunity to
Yeah.
dive deeper. As opposed
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
you know, driving across the ocean, sailing across the ocean. I'm trying to go deeper into the ocean, really uncover and learn some things about myself, help you uncover, learn some things about you. And, you know,
That's what's up. Yeah, it's funny that you say
yeah.
that because, I mean, like, you can test drive a whole bunch of cool cars, but at some point you're going to have to lock in on something. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
right. And another thing, I'm sure there's some women, they're never happy that they're going to hear that and be like, did he really just compare women to cars? But yes, I did. Yes, I did. Thanks for coming to my show. But no, Celia and I have been in a 17-year relationship. We started dating in New Orleans. We met in a dog park. We met on freaking Craigslist. That's a true story. I typed this crazy wall of words. This is back in 2009. I typed this crazy wall of words just to see if anybody would respond to it. And this woman, being a lawyer, can consume a lot of information like it's nothing. So she just read that like it was a fortune in a fortune cookie. It was like, oh, interesting brain. And because I'm trying to tell you, it was like it was a filter, let's put it that way. I think these women were looking for pictures of like my truck and dick pics or whatever, and instead got actually, and I just typed this whole crazy ass nerdy thing. But it was me. I was being authentic. And so she and I met in a dog park. And that was my idea. She had 2 dogs. I had 2 dogs. I'm like, look, we're dog owners. Let's meet in the dog park. We meet in the dog park in the French Quarters. And immediately I liked her. I liked her intelligence. I liked her. I learned in the first 15 minutes of knowing her that she checked all of my boxes, which I always suggest to young men. You're prioritizing all the wrong stuff. Your criteria for meeting a woman should be, and this is my standard now: intelligence, compassion, motivation, integrity, and humility. When I met Celia, I knew that we shared intelligence because we shared the same sense of humor. If you find yourself fake laughing at each other's jokes, that's a red flag. But if you're gut laughing, if you share the same sense of humor, it turns out you're going to probably share the same type and level of intelligence. Compassion, I watched how people reacted to her. She was just very kind. She never had a bad word to say to anybody. I watched how she engaged with her dogs. She had a vibe of love. And I was like, this feels comfortable. This is what I would want my kid to experience in as a mother. Motivation. I mean, the woman passed the bar in 4 states. She traveled the country on her own. She freaking, has traveled abroad more than a goddamn diplomat. And because she was just interested, and that curiosity was interesting for me. She has experience. I mean, her number is damn near as high as mine, and I'm not taking that from her. I'm like, okay, good. That means that when it's time to settle down, there's nothing out there that's going to be interesting for you. And that's just really what time it was, got all my music out of my system. 'Cause I don't want to, I'm like, I don't want to have to train you. I want you to know what the fuck you're doing. I want there to be smiles on your odometer. I'm not mad at you. I know that she has humility because she never talked about her intelligence. She just quietly demonstrated it through her actions, and she never prioritized her intelligence as an identity claim. You just know she was intelligent. Just you can watch how she moves. And then her integrity. She literally told me once, I can't promise you I'm not going to cheat on you. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, no, she said, I can't promise you that I'm going to stay with you. I can't in this moment at 30, whatever years old, tell you that I'm going to be with you for life. I don't know how we're going to evolve. I don't know how we're going to change as we grow. I hope for the best, but I'm not promising you that. And also, no, I won't cheat on you, but it has nothing to do with you. I have high integrity, and I want to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, I'm not a cheater. I never have cheated. I never will cheat. That's just who I am. And she was so like dead ass with it that I was like, not especially romantic, but I'll take it. And we lived happily ever after. We have a 16-year-old son. We have a dog named Hannah. We've been through a lot, and I never really talk about her on this show because partially just for her privacy, and also partially because it's like, I'm not trying to like fag out on this thing, but I love her. Sorry, gay people. If you can take a dick, you can take a joke, though. But anyway, hey, as my legal representation, did I just overstep that a line?
Hey,
I got to be me.
your
It's the
show.
it's the Bro Coach podcast. So let me ask this: so you have kids. How do you enjoy being a father?
Man, I love being a dad. Yeah, it's one of the gifts of life. And so, but you just piggybacking off of your point around met her within 15 minutes. You know, she checked all your boxes.
Oh,
I had that same experience with my wife. Met at a wedding, my friend's wedding, and she was a bridesmaid. I was a groomsman. So we walked down the aisle together, and I spoke with her, and we were speaking, and we spoke for hours, talked for hours, and I think it takes to your point, you know, within the first 15 minutes or so, it takes a level of maturity in that experience, prior experience in dealing with various women. Hey, you know, you can read what you don't want, you can read what you need, and I can see that you got the foundational opinions that we can build on, you know, go from there. Um, but you were asking me about being a dad.
well, no, listen, you can make me piggyback off of that for a second. One of the things I'm noticing about you that I think is really, I think you and I share something. I think you and I are both very closeted about how passionate we are in our relationships. And it's really interesting. We never talk about this stuff in session. And I mean, we kind of talk about it, but we don't go into it. And yet in this environment, like your energy lit up when you started talking about your wife. You talking about I rub her down and everything. I'm like, oh shit, voice
Yeah, I
got
got a
lower.
massage table for Mother's Day. I got the the heated blanket. You know, so I'm trying to set up the full. You know, I'm really trying to keep it prime. You know,
No, I
whatever it
feel
takes.
you. I feel you. He said, turn them off. Yeah, man. I like that about you because you've defined yourself. You're the epitome of a serious man. When I talk to you, between your military background, your strict upbringing, or I should say straight and narrow, not strict, but your academic pursuits, you're this like serious guy. Like when I first met you, I was just like, why do I feel like I'm in a fucking job interview with my client? Because you're like this serious dude, but you do have a lighthearted side, but you do. And you run around life like a covert agent, man. Like you're like, first thing you told me is like, yeah, I'm kind of a lone ranger. Like I just move in shadow, you know? And I'm like, okay, bro. But the more I get to know you, the more I discover that under all of that, you're this big hearted person. You're this very kind, nice guy. And to hear you talk with such obvious passion and enthusiasm about your role as a husband and about the person who is your wife, not just about the idea of marriage, but about the very person that she is in and about your dynamic. I just have to say that's inspiring. And that bleeds into being a father because like my son Bennett completed us. Celia and I are cool, but Bennett is our raison d'etre, man. Like everything we do is around not just she and I, but around this loving household that we've created. Like our home feels good when people come to visit, my clients come to visit. No, it doesn't feel good riding in a Jeep with me, but that's a different story. I take them out on safari in my Jeep and they're like, are we going to get home? But in the house, everybody always comes in and they feel like, man, this feels like love. And coming from not that, I feel very happy to have created that. I think as a man listening, I think it's very nice for young men to hear, hey, I'm listening to two alpha individuals who are saying it's not soft to love your woman. it's not soft to allow yourself to feel big feelings associated with your woman and with your children. Can I get an amen on that one?
Yeah, amen. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the children. You hit it on the head, Dennis. I mean, they become a real center point around all the decisions that they get made between you and your partners. They're, you know, I have a daughter. She's 3. My son is going to be 11, and
Say it again. In when?
9 days, May 24, he turns 11.
Nice.
And they're real anchors, and for me, not keeping you grounded around what's important, what's not important, and raising them, and doing the things that need to be done to facilitate raising them is it's an essential element of my life.
100%. And fatherhood is my favorite thing. I really like being a dad, and it extends into my coaching.
It's
The older
fun.
I get, yeah, it's fun. It is. It's straight up fun. I get to be a kid
You get to
again.
go to the park all the time.
Yeah, man.
Play soccer. I never played soccer growing up.
Yeah, me either.
You want to go swimming to the pool all the time.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yes, indeed. I look fondly at all the pictures that I've taken over the years of myself with my son, and he's having the childhood I never had, and I'm having it with him. So everybody's winning in that situation, right? All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play us off stage. And I'm going to do it by reminding you, if you're listening, I'm here today with Jonathan Hartsfield, who has been a client of Man Up Life Coaching and has become a friend, someone who, long after we're done working together, will always be there's an open invitation to be a guest in my house, because I think you're just a great guy. And I think you are really an exemplary human being. So if you were to give any advice to any either young man out there listening or to any older guy out there listening who is inspired by the idea of bettering himself by making moves rather than excuses, what would that advice be?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Read, study,
Read,
and read stuff
study.
that's interesting to you,
Yep.
and be a lifelong learner.
Be a lifelong learner. I
And
love that.
and most important, study and try to learn yourself. And the more you are able to sit with yourself and you learn yourself and study yourself, you take those steps to develop yourself.
And if you can't do it alone, I know a guy.
Hey, I know a guy.
That's what's up. Jonathan, I'm going to thank you so much for following my crazy lead. You jump in this session and I'm like, hey, let's do a podcast. But this was fire, dude. This was really good. Did you enjoy the experience?
I did. Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. Thanks for, tossing in something different.
Okay. On that note, I am Dennis Procopio. I am the owner and founder of Man Up Life Coaching. You have been listening to yet another episode of the Bro Coach podcast. We're in season 2, and we ask you to like, follow, and subscribe if you want more content for healthy men. We're on all the socials that you are probably on. We're easy to find. Go to brocoach.com or find us on Spotify and Apple and all that crap. Until the next time, thank you so much for being a listener, and we will see you out there, gentlemen.